Guess who's back?
Back again.
The ladies are back on Reef Therapy, Reef Builders. We are here at Chattanooga Reefstock, and we're excited to have special guest Tia Davis with us. We're going to talk about some macroalgae, and we're going to give her a little warm-up for her talk later. Evie, how's it going?
It's going good. Oh, I was a little too close there. My apologies, everybody. It's going good. I'm stoked to be here in Chattanooga. I really do love this community. Everybody is so nice, and everyone everywhere you go you can like walk anywhere that you want to go to. The weather has been absolutely phenomenal while we have been here. It's been sunny the entire time. The aquarium is literally just 10 minutes down the road, which is incredible, by the way. If you have ever gone to the Tennessee Aquarium, do it. Whether you have or not, it is definitely a visit everybody should attempt to go to. They're a phenomenal facility, but the people here in the area are fantastic. The food is also fantastic.
It has been really good.
The food has been very good. Yes. I kind of want to just like eat through all of it because there's so many varieties, and I can't stay here long enough to do so, but I'm trying.
There you go.
Right?
You gotta try the barbecue in each 3 of regions of Tennessee because the barbecue is different in each region.
Okay. So being from Kansas City, that
Yeah.
that is a
Kansas City
challenge
and
for
Carolina
me.
barbecue.
Yes.
So now we gotta get into
You gotta
the
get
Yeah.
into the
barbecue.
3.
Yes.
Nashville, and then you have like the Middle Tennessee. I like Cleveland's barbecue the best, and then like really far East Tennessee, I like Johnson City and Chattanooga's. Both of those kind of have their own flavor. I'm a big barbecue nut, so.
Oh, I love barbecue. Barbecue's the best. So today, just so some of y'all are a little bit more familiar with Tia, you actually have a very good Facebook presence. Like I think that I'm not sure how I found you.
Yeah, I stalk everyone. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm not. Were you with Reef Bum? Did you do one with Reef Bum?
No,
You were on a podcast that I heard, and I got a little.
I think it was
preview
either
of your
Tank Talk with Tyann, Markna, and
It
then
was
with
Markna
Carolina
for
Reef
me.
Club.
It was Markna for me. That's how
Those are the
I
only
saw
3
you the
talks I've
first
done.
time.
I'm kind of reclusive.
kind of reclusive. Well, we got her out here in the wild.
Yes.
We did.
I'm
We have a
terrified.
wild
Thank you.
Tia. So whenever you started getting into your adventure and all of the research that you're doing now, what brought that about for you? Is it just
Yes.
pure fascination and love of science?
Yes, my dad jokes I came out the womb a marine biologist. My 4th grade project was if goldfish got brighter if you had algae in their tank versus not. So we dosed algicide in one, and I've kind of always been like this. But I worked at Sustainable Aquatics for a long time, and I started scrubbing tanks, and then by the end, I was in each of the different departments, and I really fell in love with nutrient management. And so being at a huge clownfish hatchery, obviously there's a lot of water changes and nutrient management you have to do. So that kind of sparked my interest. When I went to college, I kind of realized my heart was in nutritional embryology. And so aquaculturing is a really huge focus for me. Everything is at the end goal of making a really sustainable and aquaculture-focused future. And so when I was starting up my own kind of place, I wanted to have something. It was the Ready Reef line. It was my first invention. It was really cool. It was a calcium and iron-based matrix that leached based off of your consumption levels. And I was like, this is sick. Why aren't you paying it?
That is sick.
Yeah, and so I wanted to do a trial on how it worked and, what corals were affected, which ones that help versus not. And it was all sterile. And I got dry rock, RODI, synthetic salt. We're not near the ocean. And the bags of sand, the live crushed aragonite. And then the first trial, obviously the crushed aragonite contaminated it. So I went to a quarry, and I got a quarry rock. So it had never been exposed to the ocean. It wasn't live. And I was testing the Ready Reef, and I got all these weird algae popping up. And I was like, my experiment's ruined. And so I contacted I contacted a couple of phycologists, which is like an algae scientist. And I was like, what is going on? I can't stop these weird algae from getting in here. I've never seen this stuff. And they said, well, it may be coming in as spores. And if you're growing spores of macroalgae on dry rock, that's huge. And so I was like, oh, that's neat. And so I let it grow out, and we had these little Ziploc bags. And I went to the Kinney's, I think it's called Aquaticon. And I had a booth with all of my aquacultured fish and my corals that I had frags of, and Ziploc bags full of random macroalgae. And I had Googled and kind of identified which one I think it was, because there's not a lot of resource out there at all about macroalgae.
And this is going back how long?
2 years ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you were
really
bringing
it was-
macroalgae onto the scene 2 years ago.
Well, I wasn't one of the first ones. It's been
But you
in
had it in bags.
Tennessee, I was the only one with bags, and we were selling them for I think it was $1 a bag. And so one guy, he drove 2 hours, and he said, "Are these the macroalgae for $1 a bag?" He was like, "Yeah, I'll buy all of them." I had like 50 bags. I was like, "Yay!"
You spent more on gas to get here than
Yeah,
you spent on...
yeah. And so then somebody came back and they said, "I drove for an hour. You have blue hypnea for $1 a bag?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess that's what it is. Is this what you guys think it is?" And they were like, "Yeah, it's $50 an inch online." I was like,
You're like, oh,
so I didn't realize people cared or wanted it. So I really got into that, and I realized how little information there was. I realized how little identification was going on because, like Jake always said, the scientific names matter. One of the biggest pet peeves I have is the dragon's breath. Any red, fluffy Graciliera is dragon's breath magically. There's 3 different color versions, orange, red, purple. The rest are Gracilieras. They're different species. I've got the big 3-foot glass tumblers over there of red Ogo. People are like, "Oh yeah, you have the dragon's breath," and I'm like foaming at the mouth. But so I'm getting them PCR tested. So we actually have the gene identification. I've got a really great hookup with a lab, and they send me the results, but I have to translate them on Algae Base myself.
oh wow.
So I've got a bunch of really great friends at Algae Base. Thank you guys that have been helping me out with that. Because there's just nobody really doing it for the hobby.
How
There's a
long
bunch
does
of
that take? How long is that process for sending it off for testing and identification
It takes
taking
about
you?
2 weeks to come back, and then I get a 9-page report of just genome sequencing. And so, thank God Algae Base has an AI you can run it through. It at least gives you a baseline of, hey, it might be these 3 or 4 things. And so I send them pictures, and I do, the botanist description of how it's branching. And then I've got a couple of professors that are helping me out, Dr. Yoakum and Dr. Albert Stein. He's great. And they answer my many, many questions. I annoy the crap out of them. But at least we are identifying things, and I can say for sure this is this. And Dr. Yoakum will send me deep water species from Japan. So that's a lot of the, the Ichinoa spinosum. I know I gave Julian a really cool, I think I'm saying that right, Ichinoa. I speak redneck, so my Latin is rough. But those, I have this all spelled out, and Julian took one of them, and it fluoresced pink in blue light. And it was like a really big branch with these little spines all over it.
Whoa.
And I brought 10 of them to Reefapalooza, New York. And I said, these are the only 10 in the United States I know because Dr. Yoakum collected it herself, and she only has the ones that I'm aware of. And so I had a list of all of them. 6 of them have died. So 4 people haven't answered me. So if you see a really cool macroalgae floating around this fluorescent pink, you're welcome.
Kind of the same as corals. Like, if you
Yeah,
get a
that's
cool
very cool.
piece and you share with people, and then, because didn't you say afterwards you had an incident?
Yeah.
Where and then you wanted to get it back, and so then you can get it back from people that you share it with.
Yeah,
And, like,
having backups, that's very, very important.
And I mean, Meckley just helped me. Jake Adams' Weeping Willow. They had posted.
Oh.
There's only one
It
on
always pops
Facebook.
up.
Well, I posted a picture. I said, "What you're describing looks an awful lot like this one, and this is in my frag tank. If it's important, I'll separate it." And they're like, "Well, bring it and get it ID'd." And so I brought it over to Meckley, and it's like angry and shriveled. I'm not good at traveling with things, and I was like, "I promise it looks like this." And he's like, "Well, that might actually be it." So I'm gonna give that to him, and hopefully he can grow it out and tell me yes or no. If not, Merry Christmas. But I had got it from somebody who supposedly had their tank photographed by Jake, and they traded a couple sarcophytans. And so when he got out of the hobby, he had given me his broodstock clownfish, but I had to take the whole tank. And he was like, "This one's really special." I was like, "Yeah, okay." But
little
apparently
did you
was.
know it was the one
resurfaces.
everybody
It resurfaced
keeps
today.
hunting
So,
for.
I mean, it may not be it. Meckley will grow it out and see
We'll
if
find
it
out.
is cool. I mean, I'm not a big coral person anymore. I did that with sustainable for a little bit, but I'm just not about the corals. The macro is so much cooler.
So you started with how many, that very first show you did, how many different species? How many different
37.
types? You started
Came
with
up with
37?
Ready Reef. Yeah, from Spoil.
Whoa.
And so from there, I lost 16 of them just from inexperience. I didn't really know what I was doing. But moving to the modified Wallstad method, shout out Diana Wallstad, you're the best. But I do a modified Wallstad method, and being able to do a lot of these, the mermaid's tail, mermaid's fan, and Dota, and I hope I'm saying the right species. We actually have those aquacultured now. So with the hydrogel I use, we're getting babies popping up. And so being able to aquaculture that is strictly because of the method that she helped me with. So Love
That's
her. Thank you.
amazing.
Yes.
And all of that is really, it's just now starting to get quite a bit of awareness lately, because I think the curiosity factor and people wanting to try new things, or even like dive into new types of equipment, or even just experimenting on their own with smaller tanks, it's really starting to take off at the moment because of individuals like yourself that are like, hey, you know what, this is actually really cool, you should try this, or I love this and this is why.
Yeah.
And that's what's an amazing part of this hobby, in
And
all
I'm so
honesty.
excited to share it too. And I know a lot of people are so skeptical because when you first get into the hobby, everybody always gets sold to the beta in a bowl. And like I feel like you never unlearn that lesson. So
Or
I'm
go
like,
further down that road, you get sold the goldfish from the
goldfish.
fair.
Yes.
oh, yes.
Yeah.
And so when I'm like, you can keep this in a bowl in your windowsill and I swear it'll be fine. They're like, you're lying. But I mean, you hear about reefers struggling with algae so much. I mean, it's coming up just because you're taking care of the water and you're doing all of these different feedings. So just, sprinkling a little bit of flake in there once a week is enough for these guys sitting in a windowsill that are cooler watered. So you can keep them at room temp and have the little bowl. But I mean, they make so many nano heaters and little filters. You can keep some like sexy shrimps and dwarf seahorses and with fairly relatively easy care.
I want to do that. I want to
Just
make
tell me
like
about her
a
8-year-old
like a
seahorse
little
that-
like an
Yeah,
orb or something with macroalgae and like sexy shrimp
Go over there.
in the windowsill.
Yeah.
Dude, I want to do that.
So how many did you bring today to this show?
I brought 12 of the little design your own seahorse tanks, and we actually sold more of the little pico jars than we did of the seahorses. So I've still got like 32 seahorses over there.
How many types of
And-
algae?
Oh, I brought 45 varieties.
Whoa.
And I brought 3 at the big grow out size. So I've got the Botricladia. I don't know the second name because I'm still getting a PCR, but it's about this tall. And so I love the people that come up and they go, oh, macroalgae is really hard. And I'm like, if you can keep a planted freshwater tank, I promise you this is easier. Like that's the harder version of what I'm doing here. And so I set up like a planted saltwater, and I did, the ferric oxide lava rock, the miracle mud, then capped it with crushed aragonite. Put the tall red Botricladia in the back, kind of like people do the Amazon swords. The yellow spiny spinosum, and then the green crunchy Halimeta optuna in the front. And it's beautiful. I stuck in some like Gorgonians in there. And like it's a little planted tank.
What's amazing is that a lot of times whenever people will go from fresh to salt or salt to fresh, they think that there is not something that is kind of between
Like
the
middle
two.
ground.
Crossover.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you
This is the
actually
middle
are
ground.
showing them there is a middle ground. So that would be really amazing to see, is a freshwater aquascape or
Yes.
aquascaper now take in the salt water for just that aspect and do like a really intricate scape with it.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about certain species towards the back, create the
Brandy's
depth,
doing
all
that.
of it. That's actually really amazing, and it's still simple
Yeah,
to
and
take care
Brandy
of.
is doing that. She came by my booth today and she's like, I'm setting up a macroalgae tank. I want to move, I have a tank that's middle ground for the people who are planted for freshwater tanks that want to do salt. What do I need to do? And so we set that up with her. And so follow
That's
her. She'll be
amazing.
doing exactly that and talking about the differences. She's way more experienced in the planted freshwater. I don't do freshwater because
Yeah,
I think it's
haven't done it
hard.
in a long time. I
Like,
know.
I'm
killed
amazing
I
in
killed the
salt.
little banana plants or whatever they were, like the
Yeah,
ones that are
like-
supposed to be like really hardy.
I just can't
Yeah.
keep
Killed that
both
dude.
sides of that hobby information in my brain at the same time.
Valid.
So like when saltwater came in, freshwater went out. It's like I'm trying to get them both in there at the same time.
Yeah.
But so if a hobbyist that was new into the macroalgae game came to your booth today, what would be your top pick to send them home to be successful with?
It would kind of depend on what they wanted to do. If they wanted to do the little pico jar, the way that I always recommend the algae is I have a letter system. And it's not like A grade is the best and E grade is, it's just categories. So I have like A, B, C, D, E style tanks. An E style tank would be like, you've got radions and halides and you iron dose and you send off an ICP every week and you've got calcium reactors, like high tech, high running, low nutrient kind of profile. And then an A style tank would be like a pico vase in a jar. So however they would want to do it, I'd have different corals for that. But generally the easiest ones is always the caulerpas. The caulerpas have a really bad rap because they do go asexual. They will sporulate. And so I've never had an instance of that happening except when my power went out and I keep 24/7
Yes.
lights on them.
Yes.
So just keep 24/7 lights on them And also in Tennessee, we controlled crabgrass by setting down trays, and that way the runners can't escape. And so if you want to do a plant with runners, you do it in like a this. And so I do the modified wall stand in a little Tupperware and stick in a piece of caulerpa and just let it be a bush all on its own. And that can be its own nutrient export for people who don't want to do the tumblers or keep the Cato in the back or the dragon's breath. So that's how I do a lot of the nutrient export in my predator tanks, because I love to feed my babies.
So
my habit.
when you've got this setting down in there, do you have to do any type of like rotation, maintenance, just pruning?
And what I'll do is I'll actually pull out the whole runner. Actually, I'll take the tub out of the tank and make sure I don't spill, the sediment that's gotten in there. Take the tub out of the tank, pull out all the caulerpa, slap it in a jug, and then I'll eat it because I'm a maniac. But then you just put one singular runner back in and it'll grow back. And tangs like to eat this grape caulerpa. They like to eat the prolifera a lot too, I found. Tangs like to eat pretty much anything filamentous. Okay. I think a lot of the algae haven't been classified in the hobby either. They're like, oh, this is a random thing. Good luck. This is the species name.
See
Enjoy
what eats it. Maybe something will, maybe something won't.
Yeah.
Let me know.
But you can look at like the phylogeny of where it's at in the families, and then, it's a filamentous algae. That means that the tangs are really going to like it. And some of them have really high amino acid profiles that people are, soaking their foods in vitamins and garlic, that if you fed out the algae that's helping manage your nutrients, people always call it a cycle, but whenever you're doing your cycle and you do a water change, you never put it back in.
Right.
So making your own nutrients back bioavailable could also help your nutritional value of your tank too. So I think that's a lot of the profile that people are missing too.
So with some of these algae, I know that I can't remember the timeline in which it was. I feel like it was like early 2000s. It seemed like some fancy refugiums were the rage. This almost kind of reignites it, but with way more species being available to people.
Display,
yes.
And there was somebody who was talking over there, and they were talking smack about it, but I was like, they were like, I know some people that they want to show off their sump more than they want to show off their display anymore. I'm like, yeah, sick. Me too, bud.
There are some cool sumps out there. There are some cool sumps. Like sometimes it's not even necessarily about like the stuff that can be inside of it, but like
it's cord managed.
Your plumbing is beautiful. The cord management is beautiful. Maybe you've got like your own LED system going on in there, even if it's supposed to be for like fanciness more than effectiveness. Yes. I feel like everybody's done it all. Yeah. And below the tank has turned into its own, I don't know, what do you call that?
Its own kind of biome.
It's turned into its own like trend. Per se.
And I love having a little demon in the bottom. Like a Dungeness crab or like a frogfish. I had a
you have like the
I had a eel down there with like a little mesh top tank, a little green wolf eel. It's technically a dotty back. It's not a real eel.
It's the jail. That's where you send criminals into the cell.
She has a demon in her basement.
The demon in the basement. And so I love having a good little demon, like a little shame-faced crab. So cute.
Yeah.
My little pet demon.
Well, and then it opens up the hobbyists as well to just new things, new little critters that maybe you didn't even know that you could access or even keep really effectively.
Yeah.
So it's expansion of the hobby, expansion of the education, just all around even more fun.
Yes.
So now you did say that you like to eat some of it.
People always ask,
did you bring us a snack?
I did.
Tia brought snacks, guys.
And so I did this on Tank Talk with Tyann, and it was kind of a mistake because that was one of my first talks. And so people are like, oh, you're Tia, right? And I'm like, oh, yay, they like macros. And they're like, I saw you eat algae. And I was like, oh, God.
We're going to do a little known for ASMR algae eating.
ASMR algae.
Because those are, so what do we have?
So this is Caulerpa lentifera. It's an Indo-Pacific species. Mm-hmm. And so you can also get these if you don't want to grow your own algae at your local Asian market. It's called 1010. You can get them in a little jar. I don't really have plates, so we can do it one at a time, I guess.
You go first.
Are you gonna do the proper thing and cut it, or are you just gonna?
No, I'm just shoving it in my mouth.
All right, we're
Is
going.
There a proper way?
I have no idea. I was just asking.
But you can try it one singular, but I like to have them all in my mouth at once because it feels a little sweeter.
Is it kind of like a? I feel like it almost looks like bubble tea, but it's nature.
Like boba tea.
Oh yes. Okay,
yes,
all right.
I told her, I was like, I need some like sesame oil or something.
Yes, I should have brought the sauces. I meant to, and I totally left them out.
Okay, you ready, Evie?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
I want to see this.
doesn't really have a lot of taste to it. It's kind of slightly sweet, slightly like earthy.
I felt like I just swallowed, like I was swimming in the ocean and got hit by a wave.
Oh, it's too salty. I did. So the way
it's
that I
not too
prep
salty,
it is in a
actually.
salt brine, so I may not have rinsed it enough.
I do feel like, though, like if you've ever had seaweed that just doesn't have any salt or anything like that, that's what it is. So honestly, I can totally see that with some seasoning.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, in the Philippines, I'm probably going to butcher it, but lado, I think that's how they say it. And there's like a recipe out there, and it's really popular in the Philippines. And one of my friends, when I told her I was doing this, she was like, oh my God, you're eating it raw, you savage. And so she sent me the recipe, and it was really good. I should have brought it. I regret it.
So there's recipes to eat your macroalgae, because we also talked about how do you dispose of your macroalgae, because
Yes, that's a
sometimes
very
you get
big thing.
overgrowth of macroalgae.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I always feel bad with like GSP or Kenya trees or macroalgae where you can't get anyone to take them, but they're live things and you don't want to throw them away. So what do we do with them?
Well, with these
Eat them.
two, there is laws in different states. So, like, for
Right.
example, in California, no macros are allowed because actually, I believe it was this species became invasive. And so it was in the ocean. So they totally banned macroalgae.
Yep.
And so there was a guy here, I'm not going to say it because he wanted me to do bad things, what his name was. But he was like, I will pay you to ship it to my door. And I'm like, it is illegal in your state. It's a $5,000 fine per instance. And you want to avoid everything I have? Absolutely not. So
Like, I'm good.
please follow the laws. They're there for a reason. And so when you're disposing of macroalgae, what I do is I actually pulverize it into a powder. And so any species, as long as it's a non-toxic, you can use as like an additive to any ag food. So like I brought quail eggs because I was talking online. You can feed it out to your quails, and I've found they taste so much better because they have all these trace elements and nutrients.
Another crossover.
Another crossover.
Chicken eggs, quail.
And if you have hognose snakes and you want to do the seaweed and this, it's a whole
love that.
ecosystem in my house, dog. So
I love all of it.
Dude,
All right,
we
now
need
you're
a, we
getting
need
at
a,
it.
I know, I didn't think I was. We need like a whole walkthrough on like how many different things can you feed this to?
yes, and like that's how I dispose it. Is I dry it and then I pulverize it in like one of those
All right.
little you pull the string and it's got blades. And so I add it to the chicken and quail feed.
I actually know a guy that does exotic bird.
It is a lot like bubble
raises
tea.
and breeds exotic birds, quail and stuff
But
like that. So I
earthy.
should tell him I have a business proposition.
Oh yeah, it's kicking in now.
Well, I'm all about like self-sustainability.
I like
and
the popping,
aquaculture and
though.
homesteading, so I'm all about it. Yeah, I'm gonna eat it.
I like the popping.
Remy.
No, we're done.
Yeah.
I got you a fork.
Yeah,
Wait.
you should totally try it.
Chicken.
Oh, sorry,
Chicken.
he's busy. He can't eat
Chicken.
macroalgae.
But yeah,
After you've popped all of the, I mean, do we call them bubbles?
I mean, yeah,
They are.
Okay.
They
Yeah.
call it grape colourpa because it looks like little bubbly
So
grapey things.
whenever you pop through those, and they're deflated or drained, it does have like a spearmint kick
Yeah,
at the end
yeah,
when it is like pulverized just by your chewing.
yes.
So I didn't get any of the over saltiness. So Chelsie, you definitely didn't get enough.
It may have been too much brine.
But
So,
that
how did
that
you
is
prep
actually
it?
really amazing.
So
You didn't
to
just pull it
clean
out of the tank and feed us your
Now you can do that
macroalgae.
to apparently Red Ogo. I was talking to Harley over at P&W Customs. He went to Hawaii and they had a huge seaweed facility. And he said they literally like pulled it out of the tank. I was like eating the algae straight out of the vat, and I was like, I don't like the crunchy bits. I'm pretty.
Pods,
I do
extra
cocoa
prote.
pods. So what I do is I take it out and then I'll do like a vinegar wash with 5% vinegar base, and so from there I'll then do it in a salt brine to increase the flavors of it. I feel like it comes out more. That's from my Filipino friend. And so then I do like a freshwater wash, and so that kind of locks in the flavor and keeps it kind of neutral. But you don't have to do all that as long as you clean it up a little bit, make sure it doesn't have Vibrio and all the nasty pathogens
Right,
you
that's
can
what
get. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clean.
Just the vinegar wash is the best, I think. Sometimes I just do that if I don't feel like being fancy.
I feel like it almost could be like an added like
salad
like
topping.
sushi garnish.
Yes.
I think it would be really good on
man's
sushi.
Reefer's caviar.
Yeah, Reefers caviar. Yes, you should totally do that.
Well, there's a really good. This is getting too deep in the sauce, but Dr. Yoka, she talked all kinds of smack because I wouldn't eat it at first, and she's like, "Okay, I'm gonna tell you an ice cream recipe, and we're gonna Zoom call and make it." And it was with ulva. So she sent me her species of ulva that she likes. She grows it in a hamster ball in her display tank, and her pupper plays with it. It's hilarious.
You know what? That the hamster balls, the activity balls, those used to be phenomenal for back in like the early 2000s.
I remember we used those at the store.
Algae management. It really was, because it could contain everything. It had vents, and you
spin
could
'em around.
literally set it right in any of your barricaded zones. And there are so many different sizes available. And anytime people would come up to me and be like, how do I keep this contained in my sump? Like, it's going to root, it's going to like take off. And I'm like, oh, just go get a hamster ball, go get
She keeps
or a
it her
guinea
this
pig
way.
ball, or the rabbit ball, whichever one you want, and just let it go.
Yeah.
They are like
Really good.
Good crossover
I'd
tools
never
there.
Seen it. I'd never seen it. And so
That tells you
she
how
was
old
like,
I am.
grow it like this for 6
was
months,
old.
keep your levels here, and that's going to make the optimum taste. And so I harvested my ulva. I did like a freshwater rinse in it. And then she made a gelatin, which I didn't know you could make gelatin
kind
out
of
of it.
like sea moss.
Yes, very
Yeah,
similar.
yeah.
And so she made this ice cream dish that was like mochi out of it. And it had an ice cream inside with ube ice cream and ulva like paste on the outside. That was the best freaking ice cream I'd ever had in my whole life. And it was all out of like, aside from the obviously the filling, was out of my tank. And I was like, this is amazing. I see why my fish go crazy for this.
So in the end of the world, we're just going to come to your house, because we'll know that we can actually like eat a wide variety of things, because you'll be like full-blown culinary expert when it
Dude,
comes
yeah.
to feeding everybody the macroalgae
And there's
diet.
like 4 that I've played around with eating. I've got 72 at the house and 45 at the booth, and not all of them are known to be edible. I mean, don't eat random macroalgae. Don't do that.
How do you decide when you want to try a new one? Do you go do a bunch of research and go, I'm ready to branch out today?
It's kind of like
I want to try a
foraging
new
mushrooms.
one. Yeah, right.
Make sure you got your IDs down enough that your life depends on it.
How do you even decide today's the day I'm going to try a new one?
Usually when Dr. Yoakum bullies me, she's gonna, if she sees this, she's gonna yell at me. But she'll be like, "What are you doing? Try it," because her big thing is like she grows red ogo and caulerpa for ruminant management. So they use it as like a sustainable long-term aquaculture feed for cows and lambs and all that stuff to enrich the food, because that's a huge thing in India too, is managing all of that. So her research is all kinds of, I go nuts for it with the nutritional embryology background. But she's a really cool lady. I wish she was here.
Dude, I want to meet her. I want to like.
I need to like ask
Can we
her
be
if she'll come
Facebook
next time she
friends?
comes to the
Can we be
U.S.
Facebook
Yeah,
I want to be Facebook.
she's
friends.
not on Facebook. She loves Hotmail chat,
Hotmail.
Hotmail chat.
I didn't even-
and WhatsApp.
Wow.
Okay, I don't have any of those.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that Hotmail had a chat.
Yeah,
You
me
mentioned
either.
something that I wanted to ask T a little bit further on, is the growth of the different macroalgae. So there's some free-floating ones that need to move, and I'm probably using terrible terminology.
Same. I'm not going to use real science stuff.
Or there's rooting. So how do we plant the different type of macroalgae if we're going to use them in a display?
So a lot of times too, and this is one of the things I'm going to gripe about during my talk, when you order algae online, a lot of these people are not, phycologists, or they don't, I mean, they're doing the best they can, and thank God they're bringing them to the hobby. But I talk about it in my talk. I ordered 19 different Cato, which if you didn't know, there's more than one species of Cato. There's not just one. They're not all the same. And so I had somebody ship me turf algae. I had somebody ship me just the leaves of an algae that you have to have the rudder and the node of to survive. And so a lot of times when you're buying these things online, people put them in their tank and they're like, oh, it died after a week. It must be me. And I'm like, no, they shipped you trash. So whenever you have caulerpa, almost always has a rudder. Whenever you have something like saw blade, it does have a node. So kind of like houseplants, some of them have roots you have to keep. If you buy a Thai monstera, don't buy just the little leaf bit. You need to make sure you got the node and all of that.
Yep.
So it's very similar to how you buy houseplants. Different species have different things, but caulerpas generally have rudders. That's what you keep in the trays like this. The gracilieras, you can buy leaves of, and they'll make their own nodes. But whenever I give them out in the jars, I always make sure you have 2 or 3 nodes of them.
The Hipia seem to
It's
attach
like a bush.
to rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They said you couldn't glue it on frag plugs, but that's how I aquaculture it. Maybe I'm just lucky and it's a big enough culture.
I would kind of tuck it, but then it would attach itself.
Yeah, it, like,
I don't
makes
see
it-
that.
Yeah, I always use like a little maybe if there's like rubble rock or something, kind of place a little bit on something that didn't look like it was squishing it or going to compromise it in any way, and just be like, okay, go
Wedged.
forth and root down some more.
Well, that's how the tide would move it too. A lot of times they're grown in these shallows, and so that's where the wave break is. So they're pretty used to being stuck in some random crevice and having sunlight. It's like, okay, this is where I live now. I usually take ferric oxide lava rock and I'll either rubber band it or zip tie it, depending on how big it is, to make a bigger colony. and then that way it'll have like a rock base so I can move it pretty easily.
Oh yeah, that's really convenient.
Or these tubs if it's got rudders. And then if it's like Euchia spinosum where it's got the nodes that it has 3 branches on it, then I'll actually glue it to a frag plug on the side just so it's easy to manage and move. But there's different ways you can do it. I think the most creative one that I've got is I took, the grill ceramics that they make? It's really high. The grill ceramics that they use in fancy grills.
Yeah.
I found one and I was like, is this a frag rack? And he was like, no, that's one of the things from Papa's basement. And I took a frag plug and I was like, it is now. So I used the ceramic plate. I mounted it on the back. And so all those Euchia spinosums I glued on the side. I've got a vertical wall.
That's
Oh,
what Top Shelf did with their
yes.
plates.
Yes.
Well, they did a coral, but the same thing. That's awesome. So
A ceramic grill plate. Now, it was really, really high in heavy metals, which the Euchia loved, but corals would not.
yeah,
Don't do
so
that for
don't do that
corals.
for your corals.
But if you try to grow a ton of
frag
macros, they love. You got to go to my talk. I'm not giving that up for free.
Oh.
yes, and that is
Oh,
part
okay.
of the reason that we, come to the shows is also listen to the speakers. So not only to see all the pretty little corals, but also to hear the speakers talk. So you like this stuff.
I needed water.
I've lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
She wanted more of that spearmint taste. Dude, I will try it again because that was really good. I think you did not get enough because if you didn't taste that spearmint,
different?
oh yeah, does the red taste different?
And then also, make it stop
it's red.
choking. One of the species of Euchia I have, thank you.
You're welcome.
You can boil it, mix a blue liquid that's a pH indicator.
A blue liquid.
So what I
Okay.
did, we had a fairy fest in town, and I took the blue algae extract, watered it down, and then I mixed lemonade with it, and so it was magic color changing lemonade.
I've seen that. Some people call it
What?
mermaid lemonade. Or,
Yeah.
I've
it's
never
cute.
seen that. I don't get to go to any of like the cool Ren Fests lately. It's like every time it comes to my town, it's like downpour rain and it's mud Ren Fest.
Yeah.
So
We don't get
but
a lot
I
of
love
reef
those.
shows.
Yeah.
You guys are like one of the first big shows in Tennessee. So I got to go to Ren Fairs to
Yeah.
my Pico tanks. And a lot of people keep freshwater,
Yeah.
and they're intimidated by the salt. So I found a lot of nerds. They love that. So you kind of hit where the
Dude.
nerds are.
Yeah, you do.
Love me
well, I
some
feel like
nerds.
there's a lot of crossover. Like, we just all like things like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Odd, unique offshoots. Like, I think a lot of it, though, technically, is a deep-rooted, like, love of science.
Yes,
There's so
that's
much
exactly it.
science that goes into a lot of things, and we're discovering new stuff and making new pathways all the time.
Yeah.
And that is what is fueling so much growth right now, and the curiosity factor. And individuals such as yourself who are out there like, this is cool. Do you know about this? Have you tried eating this? I'm going to show you could potentially.
Well, also, too, I know a lot of people are struggling financially. And so a lot of these, like, a lot of people who have all these things with these additives and reactors and they're constantly having to sink money into. This is like, I do a water change maybe once every 6 months if it's looking a little funky. And so it's a lot easier if you work long hours and you're like, I don't know if I want to be in the saltwater hobby as much or I want to scale back. This is a good way to still scratch the itch, but, it's a little lighter on the pocket.
And
a little lighter on the
it's a
care.
nature
Yeah.
still based additive, or I guess wouldn't be additive. Maybe it is additive. It's still completely enthralled in nature, so you're not doing anything foreign.
And you can keep clownfish and a lot of your
Yeah.
fish you can keep with it.
So
And I
what
have
fish could eat that though? Because
rabbitfish
Okay.
love pretty much any macroalgae. Tangs, they like most macroalgae. Urchins. It's actually really good for your tangs and things though. So what I always tell people is you can keep it in your display. You can keep filamentous in your display as long as it's a huge colony. Because especially if you have a high bioload, it's gonna, the way that I learned the most about algae actually is Julian Sprung's Algae Problem Solver Guide. Whatever he said, I just did the opposite of, and that's how you grow it.
oh, okay. Well, there you go.
What he says is like, it's good to keep it small because they'll eat it down. But if it gets too big, they can't keep up with it. So I'm like, okay, start big, let them eat it down, and then it'll grow so fast.
But we're talking
It'll
about
be
wanting to keep it in there, right?
Yeah, you're wanting
to
so
keep
then
it.
That's
Yeah.
why we're using the reverse of
The
that.
big of it. So start with a bigger colony, and then as your fish eat it, it's a great nutrient source. That way you don't have to have the dried nori that can leach phosphates into your tank. You actually have something that's eating your phosphates. So it's like a reverse all the problems of leaving free-floating nori. I really like ulva for that. Keep ulva in your sump and a hamster ball, and then all those little spores that it puts off in your main tank if you've got tangs. That's just little snack packs, man.
I'm
And
curious
so
how long it takes them to get a taste for it, because you know how you get some fish and they don't want to eat it immediately.
Or even if maybe they're farm raised and they don't know what it is.
Well, all my fish are aquacultured rescues, so we have like a feeding station, and they know when they see the beaker and the pipette is time. And so
if you create a system for them, they
you
are
just start
smart enough to
introducing
learn.
some pieces in there, and they'll take a couple snippets of it, and then when you put it in your tank, they'll be like, "Oh, that smells like, that looks like an eating." But I find really it's a lot of natural foraging behaviors, so they just pick it right up usually. But ulva's great for that. Dragon's breath, great for that. Graciliera's pretty much in general. The Uchima, I wouldn't suggest, but if you want them to not eat it, like you've got a serial macroalgae destroyer, anything that's calciferous has a coating on the outside they generally don't want to pick at unless they're just desperate.
What would be some examples of that?
Cactus halimeta, coin halimeta. Halimeta optuna is really good because it's a really fast grower. I mean, and it also stays together and doesn't flake off everywhere.
I feel like I've been saying that wrong for like an eternity because I always said halimeta.
It's probably halimeta.
No, I trust you. It may be accurate.
This is redneckery right now, so.
Well, I'm
It's not wrong, it's
Midwesterny
just an accent.
there. I don't know.
My Latin isn't great. Julian at Reefstock, New York, I'm like, this is blah, 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 blah. And he went, you mean this? And I'm like, yes. I'm like, listen, I read the book. I don't hear people talking
I
Latin.
just read it. I say that all the time. When
Yeah,
I watch
it's
shows
tough.
with subtitles.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it, and then when I go to say it, because I'm only reading it.
Yes.
And then when I go to say it out loud, people that are like know how to say it. Are like, out loud.
I've even used
it's
Google
interesting.
Translate. I've used Google Translate and like typed in and been like,
Yeah,
how
you're
do
listening to
you
how
say
Google
it like
Translate says
this?
it, yeah.
And I still hear it said differently.
Well,
and I'm
growing
like,
up here,
"Oh."
it's totally landlocked. I didn't see the ocean until I was probably in 5th or 6th grade. And I thought corals were white because my grandma decorated her house with white
With the
corals.
skeleton.
And so when I went and I saw them in the ocean, that was it. I was hooked. I was no more freshwater. I'm out of here. So I think a lot of people, most of the biology focus, like I had to go to school in Alabama at the Dauphin Island lab because the marine biology programs in Tennessee are so lacking. We just don't have a good one. And so thank goodness I went there. They have a great program. If you're thinking about marine biology, go to Dauphin Island because they have a really good phytoplankton focusing with their shellfish lab that a lot of the people that I went to school with are now working with extracting oil from algae, which I don't know if people know you can do that. You can extract oil. Oak Ridge is using one of the species I have actually. They dose a liquid form of lithium to make the form of lithium that is used in car batteries. So electric cars, they're using seaweed to. It's awesome.
Oh, I've heard about that. That was published like a week or two ago.
It's very new.
Yeah,
and
it's
so I
really
know the people
new.
at the lab.
That's amazing.
And so I get to play with their toys because I give them seaweed. So
Backup batteries that are powered by seaweed
So you have
oils
to.
at some
It's more of
point?
like you're extracting the chemical from them.
Okay.
It's not like you oh look, we're just gonna hit right in my car.
Right.
That'd be great. Would love that,
Dude, yeah, it's almost like Back to the Future-esque.
Yes,
when
it's
he's
like it's the things of
he's
science
just, like
fiction that are
stuffing like
happening.
banana peels and stuff in there, and he's all like, "We're gonna go."
But yeah, it's really cool to actually see it. And then also too, I know there's another place that's using it to clean up nuclear waste.
Oh,
so
wow.
it actually absorbs radium. So they actually took it and analyzed it and saw that the seaweed was radioactive from absorbing it. And it was so cool because all these chemical and pollution spills, if we can identify which species absorbs what, that could have a huge ecological impact. So that's why it's so important for me to gather all this data, not only for hobbyists, because there was one guy, he said, I want my nitrates to stay in 20, but I keep having climbing phosphates, and I've done all the problem solving, I've taken everybody's advice, I just can't get it down. I was like, well, this one, according to my data, pretty much leaves nitrates alone and drinks phosphates. Try it.
Yeah,
Tell me
I'll
what you
see that.
think. I mean, you probably are going to be the first person using it in that application, so don't shoot me. But so it's so new, and it's nice to see these little niche applications for things. It's kind of like people struggled with the Assortia, I think that's how you say it, stars. And they were like, oh, you can get the shrimp, the harlequin shrimp that eats it. So being able to be like, oh, you can get this algae, it'll solve this one niche problem you have pretty reliably would be cool.
Yeah, nature has an answer to keep everything in check. It's just where did the balance get thrown off to where one overtook the other and could no longer be managed properly.
The balance is the hardest part in our tank. So I love that you were saying that one doesn't, so far that we know, touch nitrate as much as it does phosphate, because we kind of have to do that with our filter media if we're using it too. Like I've seen a lot of people use filter media incorrectly because they're trying to use a coverall.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, we do have specific medias that will target more, but now we can go on the natural route.
The more natural route. And then if it dies, that's not really your problem. You've got something else, because this is known to be that. And so I don't think there's really anybody trying to do this. And I mean, we're bankrolling it ourselves. My poor fiance, he's an accountant, and he's just watching me, study algae. And he's like, nobody cares, stop. And then we come to shows, he's like, okay, I can be around.
You should definitely get with us over at Reef Builders, so that way we would love to help you and participate in anything that you may need. I know that this is definitely something that Remy would probably enjoy. Salem would enjoy this. I mean, we have this studio. Just understanding some of this, and you guys would be able to talk with each other really frequently about any of your new discoveries, or even anything about like little management
Yes, that would be
styles.
So cool. I'm
That
just
would
glad
actually be
people
really
care.
fun.
I thought this was like, I'm being a freaking weirdo. I'm glad to see people care about this stuff other than me, because I'm like, I think this could be huge.
Well, it's new-ish, but it's exciting, and just understanding more of it really is going to just help everyone.
Yeah.
Truly, it really will help everyone, and you never know.
So when
just
you're
like
doing
you
check-ins
may
on
help
you,
with
see
all
how it's going.
the toxic waste and all that. Like, it can go on to do really great things.
And I know I was supposed to write an article. They were like, yeah, we'd love your contributions. I was like, I'm going to do a basic write-up. And it was like 4 hours later, and I'd written 9 pages. I was like, I don't know how to divide it. Here's a chunk.
I cannot shrink
I have too much to share. And so I have a lot of really cool data. I know Mark Levinson wanted my graphs and charts, and nothing is labeled. I'm calling it like crop 8, and I just know in my head that means, Halimata dictoida.
It's a lot of work. You put a lot of
It
work.
is a
into
lot of
it,
work.
It is.
so-
And so it's just
Well, and
organizing it and presenting it effectively so everybody can
We'll get
understand it.
And you're also making the resources. You're making
It's
the
me. There's not a
diagrams
team,
that
it's
everyone
me.
is getting ready to become more familiar with and understanding
And
all
doing
of
the
this. So when
shows.
you're doing it from scratch,
You're doing
it's a
every part of
huge
it.
effort.
Yeah, and we have a 6x9 greenhouse. And
Yeah, I was
a
gonna
lab.
say, how big is your greenhouse?
The
Because
greenhouse is the clean
you've got to
room.
have a bit in order to be housing that many species.
We've got a 3-car garage that my fiance Wednesday wants to park his truck in. And I have a 6x9 clean room. So it's a 6 to 9 month process to actually clean the algae, make sure there's no epiphytes, make sure it's truly from a spore, a second gen. And then once I've actually gotten a second stable variety, then it goes into another quarantine before it hits the clean room. So everything I'm selling has been in the clean room for at least a week or two. Most of them have been in there since the start, either from the spore, the original few, or some of the stuff that we've gotten. If you're looking for macroalgae, though, I don't ship. If you want to buy some, I have some great suppliers that really help you out. Amanda Macro Lady Tamilo, she's got a really great website. Mosaic Macros has been super helpful. Anytime he gets something cool, he'll send me a message. I stalk his website. Addictive Reef Keeping has been really helping me out with the blue hypnea. I'm sure he's tired of me placing massive orders of blue hypnea so I can liquidize it. Don't tell him I'm doing that, but turning it into a liquid and then analyzing it with an NIRS machine, because I think I've nailed why it's so hard to keep, but I'm not going to share it till the data shows it.
He knows now.
Yeah. Well, he knows.
He
Yeah.
knows now.
Well, he knows. I'm sure of that. But I think he won't be upset if I tell him why it grows so well, and then he can. Yeah. But one day, whenever I get the firm data, because sometimes I get some weird readings on it, but it would be cool to be like, hey, this is the trick. If you want the blue hypnea and you want it to be really rich blue, here is the trick. But it's a
Well,
matter
that's what
of just
everybody
doing it.
ends up wanting to do, even with corals, because it's always like, all right, this light setting, this type of food, this is the type of things that you want to do XYZ to bring out red, pink, purple, all of that stuff. So if we already do it on that side for the corals, it makes perfect sense for us to now do it for algae.
Like the Gaudies. I
yeah,
remember I had
Gaudies.
completely given up on Gaudies. And then I was like, oh, I hate them. Because there was a Gaudi I saw, Tristan. I was like, oh. he's like, "You're stupid. You're doing it totally wrong." I was like, "Fine, I'll buy one, and if it's wrong, I'm gonna spank you." I was like a brat about it, and then I did. I was like, "Dang, it's doing amazing. It looks so good." Tristan's way was right. So, and I've got all the degrees and stuff, but the experience of it. Like a lot of this is, and I wish that the academic side of a lot of this met up with the reef side so much, because a lot of times they're talking about like, oh, I think this would work, but you'd really have to do a controlled study. It's like you have people with sterile, isolated, controlled tanks. Why aren't you connecting with it?
Call us million monkeys.
Million monkeys.
Yeah.
A million monkeys ready. They would love to be in a paper. So I feel like if I could just get the beams to cross, you know.
Yeah, we just need to get the bridges going.
Yeah.
Start doing all the crossovers.
And I have a lot of professors that have helped with that too. I know, like I mentioned, the people from Algae Base, Dr. Yoakum. There's actually a guy that does cyanobacteria studies over at UT. And he was like, "Oh, I can't help you. And it turns out, phylogenetically, a lot of these algae are really similar to cyanobacteria. And so he was saying, and he had a great idea. He said, you're talking about all these people struggling with cyanobacteria. Well, if this class and this clade of algae is very similar, wouldn't it make sense if you put it in early, it would outcompete? And so I was struggling with cyano in some of the quarantine. And I took it all out. I let it just get gross. And I introduced 2 or 3 of the ones in the clade, and it was gone within like 2 weeks.
Dude.
And yeah, and I don't know if it's because it's, antimicrobial, because they do have some of the antimicrobial properties in them, or if it's just it absorbed the same food.
It really did choke it out.
But if you could find an algae that did that, I mean, I'm tired of spending money on it chemically. That stuff works, but dang, I'm tired of spending money on it.
Talk about microbes. Salem might appear around the corner.
Oh,
yeah, right.
Oh, I would love to give Salem some of those and let him go wild with it. But that was a great idea, and I wouldn't have known because he just has all those years of cyanobacteria research.
Yeah.
And he did freshwater. He was like, "Oh, I can't help you." But no, it was super applicable.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Well, and I think that's part of it is like some people just think that it won't have a crossover. But do we really know if the crossover doesn't exist if no one even attempts it?
Yeah. And like I know this is kind of a lot of the Facebook followers I have are not reef people. They're quail people. This is what we were talking about before. And so they were talking about they ordered parvospora powder. And I got really into the quails, and so I got all kinds of the stuff. And I ordered parvospora powders and Graciliarum parvospora, and I went, "Oh,
You're like, I know that name.
I have that." And so we were talking about getting rid of it. The Gracilia parvospora, the red ogo. I will actually dry it out, and then I've got this little thing. You pull the string, and it's full of blades. I'll powderize it and give it to my quails. And so a lot of the quail people are really into the seaweed now.
That's
because
cool.
they were like, "I didn't know I could grow it at home, and this powder, and it's so easy." So I think a lot of this crossover stuff is so neat that it's kind of happening because the hobby's gotten so big. So. But yeah, I could talk your off about that all day.
Dude, that's amazing. Well, we'll have to bring you back
We'll do Tia
and do
check-ins.
this. This was,
check-in time.
yeah, we have to do Tia check-ins.
And then I can actually leave my house or the lab sometimes. That'll be
right, or it'll feel like you did because we're all on a computer screen chatting with each other.
I go in a big circle. I go to the lab, I go home, I go to the garage, and I go to bed. And then I go to the lab. That's all I do. So even a computer check-in would be nice.
Yeah, that'd be
Working all
fun.
the time.
Well, thank you, Tia. I really enjoyed this. This was something totally different than
glad you
we've
guys
ever gotten to
cared.
do. And I really do enjoy seeing all your updates on Facebook. Tia is very, very active on there. And you're always even talking about new things.
Yeah.
And you're opening up these discussions. And her comment section is pretty busy a lot
I
of
have
times.
opinions.
Thanks for letting us put you on camera and put you on the spot.
Yes, thank you for
I was
letting
so
us
nervous
do
about
that.
it. Thank you guys for being a good part of Reef Builders and having me on. And thanks to the viewers for paying attention. If you like macros, please try it. Even if you just try something like easy peasy lemon squeezy, just get a little piece in there and see how it does. If you ever want to know anything, Mosaic Macros, Amanda, Reef Addictions, me, we're always super open to it. And Tigaboy on Instagram.
Yes.
He has the coolest macroalgae tanks. You gotta
does.
find him. You guys gotta link them or something.
Yeah, we
God,
will. We'll have
He's
to.
really open about sharing. and
He's
helping
open about
too,
like
so.
what he does and how he set it up, and he's got some awesome aquascapes.
There's some amazing
be shy to
resources out
ask
there. You just
for
got to know where to
tips.
where to find them, and then how everybody kind of interconnects together.
Because the resources aren't really easily available. So if we just get everybody together, and there's lots of good books. I can give book recommendations all day long. Boomer has a lot of really good books all the time.
You'll have to make sure that you're in our comment section when we post this, so that because it'll
scared of YouTube, but I'll
have.
do it for you.
Okay, all right, she's gonna do it for us, y'all, and that way you can get in there in that comment section and be like, here's what you're searching for, because we won't be able to keep up with it because we'll be like, hey Tia, there's a new comment. Can you go over there? Help us.
Oh yeah. I'm always down to do it. If my fiance whines about, I'll be up till like 2 a.m. on Facebook because somebody in like Wisconsin tank is crashing, and I'm like trying to get it.
I'm going to save it.
I'm gonna save it.
I could do it.
It's all worth it when it worked out though. I love the community.
There you go.
That's my thing. Is like I don't have any real life friends. I have all reef friends.
Well, you know what? We can all only come together so much, but when we do,
love the
it's
show.
awesome.
Thanks for coming to my backyard.
Of course.
Chattanooga's fun.
Of course. Yes. And thank you for coming, guys. Definitely check out Tia Davis. She is phenomenal when it comes to doing a lot of this awareness factor and even some groundbreaking research, and she's just getting started. I feel like, and so it's going to have to take a bit of everybody's interest and really desire in wanting more of that education to get this ball rolling. So anything that anybody can reach out to her and ask, you're just helping all of us gain more information, because you never know, you might stump her. Maybe she'll have to go and ask one of her colleagues.
And if you have aquacultured macroalgae, hit me up.
There you go.
I always need more.
Oh, well, there you go. This is an open offer. More macroalgae.
Please. I'll trade you. Love it.
Nice. Well, thank you, Reef Builders, and we will see you next time on Ladies Takeover.
Bye, guys.